Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. So in my short presentation, I would like to discuss some of the aspects of the terrorist use of AI. And let me start by discussing the challenges they face in this regard, because I think that that's one of the under-researched areas in the current debate. And I see three primary challenges they face. First of all, there are some technological thresholds at play related mostly to the fact that in order to establish standalone AI, so this type of AI that is much more useful for terrorists, there needs to be some programming skills at play in place, and fortunately, usually terrorists are not very good at programming, so this is the first challenge that they face. Secondly, there are also some ideological thresholds, and if we look at the current situation, we see that the far right has embraced artificial intelligence in much greater manner than Salafi jihadist terrorists. And the primary reason for this is that for militant Islamists, there are some big question marks over how artificial intelligence can be exploited. For instance, whether image generators can be used for generating synthetic images of human beings, or whether chatbots can be used to produce propaganda referring to religious texts. So these are the things that are problematic for them, and I'll refer to it in a moment. And finally, there is this security by design approach that's been adopted, at least by some mainstream platforms dealing with artificial intelligence. Fortunately, from what we've seen so far, those platforms that adopted this approach, for instance, by introducing obligatory paid subscriptions, which force media operatives to leave some financial information behind, or that adopted transparency in sharing generated content, they are usually much less likely to be exploited by either criminals or also terrorists. So these are the three types of challenges I see when it comes to the terrorist use of AI. So let me move to the core of the presentation, which will refer to the online experiment that I carried out at the beginning of 2023. The primary objective of this experiment was to verify how open access chatbots and image generators available at the time could be potentially misused by different terrorist organizations. And the project was mostly based on prompt engineering, so developing jailbreaks that are usually used by criminals and terrorists. So the first, the first phase of the experiment aimed to understand whether chatbots such as GPT 3.5 or the Bing chat, whether they can be used as a gateway to propaganda, so whether they can facilitate access to terrorist content online. And in case of the ChatGPT, it wasn't much the case, which wasn't a surprise given that it has no direct access to online environments. It could provide old addresses used, for instance, by Al-Qaeda, but was incapable of doing the same with, for instance, Islamic State. So generally speaking, it wasn't very useful in this regard. When it comes to the Bing chat, the GPT-4 based Bing chat was also not very useful in this regard, despite the fact that it has search engine capabilities, mostly because it was much more resilient to prompt engineering compared to ChatGPT. But there was a single case when it actually provided the URL to the existing Islamic State propaganda repository. But it was primarily because of the domain which was provided was treated by the Bing chat as a trusted platform, and it kind of shouldn't be. But it was just one case. However, both chatbots proved to be quite useful in finding keywords that in turn can be used in search engines to find terrorist-operated websites. The second part of the experiment, excuse me, was focused on understanding whether those chatbots could replicate terrorist content. And again, the Bing chat proved useless, mostly useless in this regard because it was resilient to prompt engineering. But ChatGPT could generate, could cite, quote, fragments of some popular pieces of terrorist content. It could also provide structure of content of some of the most popular propaganda productions, such as the Inspire magazine of Al-Qaeda. However, those quotations weren't very precise. Still, the core of the argumentation, the core of the narratives was there. And more importantly, ChatGPT could also replicate arguments and propaganda devices that are common in the terrorist propaganda. So this is something that shows, it demonstrates that potentially they can be used to mass produce text content. And the final part of the experiment that was related to chatbots was interested to find out whether they can be misused for developing terrorist manuals, terrorist instructions, so using the sensitive know-how that is at the disposal of LLMs. And unfortunately, the short answer is yes. In both cases, Bing Chat and ChatGPT, both chatbots were capable of developing very sophisticated operation security, cybersecurity instructions, including the ways of avoiding content takedowns by using Ethereum name system, which has been used a lot by Islamic State, for instance. Or they could even advise on how to exploit cross-jurisdictional problems to avoid law enforcement agencies online. So this is quite significant. And aside from this, ChatGPT was also capable of producing bomb-making instructions and instructions on how to produce toxins, including providing a 9-step instruction on how to produce a bomb, time bomb, that was featured in one of the Al-Qaeda manuals years ago. So unfortunately, we've seen a lot of terrorist chatter using this capability. I will cover this in a moment. The good news is that they weren't very useful in terms of instructions related to handling of firearms or, for instance, methods of carrying terrorist attacks. And when it comes to the image generators, the experiment found out that they could be exploited, for instance, for producing images of belligerents, posters, logotypes, advertisement banners. So there was a broad range of visuals that could be produced with prompt engineering that could be useful for terrorists. The good news was that they, at the time, at the beginning of 2023, they weren't very useful in generating images of specialized military equipment, such as firearms, or of injuries and gore. Unfortunately, now 2 years later, this is the case. We have many platforms that are capable of doing so. So this is another example of the synthetically generated image that follows the visual aesthetics of Islamic State. And let me just, to wrap up this presentation, let me just briefly discuss the confirmed uses of artificial intelligence 2 years later, because the experiment took place, as I mentioned, at the beginning of 2023. So what we have seen so far, first of all, we've seen a lot of visual propaganda production by both the far-right and Salafi jihadists, ranging from posters to memes and different types of ironic content. We've seen a lot of images that were designed to avoid content moderation or content takedowns, such as this one with Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi that was discovered on WhatsApp. And we've also seen some experiments related to audio propaganda production, including the reproducing nasheeds, famous nasheeds of Islamic State. Unfortunately, we've seen a massive amount of terrorist instructions generated by chatbots. They circulated over Telegram with the far-right, and also with Islamic State, on Islamic State terrorist-operated websites, standalone domains. So this is quite problematic. But the most advanced case of AI exploitation by terrorists is related to the Hisat Media, which is a pro-Islamic State cell that started to develop videos, AI-generated videos, news broadcasts starting from March 2024. And the news broadcasts combined 3 different AI technologies, namely lip syncing, image generation, and voiceovers, to provide a whole AI-generated video with the avatar you can see on the left. And the interesting thing about this activity is that the Hisat Media were starting from the second video, they got criticized by the pro-Islamic State followers on the internet, and they were forced to cover the face of the avatar. So you can see that those ideological constraints are considered. And aside from this, we have also seen so far some experiments related to text propaganda production and translation. To wrap the presentation up, let me just briefly move through the expected uses, judging from what other state and non-state actors do and what are the current developments in this technology. So we may expect mass production of text propaganda, at least by some terrorist organizations and violent extremist organizations. But primarily, we can expect the creation of alluring videos and music, which is already possible, but we haven't seen any examples yet, aside from the HISAT media. We may also expect to see the terrorists developing advanced software or even malware with artificial intelligence that's tested, that's possible. Unfortunately, that would be very difficult to find out. So possibly it happened, but we don't know yet. Moreover, there are some doubts. There are some doubts related to the fact that AI may be also used to design certain narratives that could influence, radicalize different types of online audiences. But the biggest problem I see is the fact that we may also expect to see the creation of dedicated tools for different types of terrorist attacks that are supported by artificial intelligence. And it was tested just recently in 2024 by one of the American citizens, hobbyists, that created hunter-seeker drones supported by AI in just a couple of hours. So I think that's it for now. Thank you so much for attention. Looking forward to the Q&A session.